And we're back. Welcome everybody to Zoom Back Camera. Apologies for the technical delays. And one second as I get my feet on the ground here. As we do at the start of every Zoom Back Camera, we have a message and I like to read it in order to get it right. So give me that. During these uncertain times that have moved us out of the physical Browning cinema and into a virtual one, our thoughts are with those battling the virus, battling isolation, battling precarity, and battling fear inherent to this moment. And alongside that, we want to extend our thanks and appreciation to first responders, medical professionals, grocers, public transit workers, childcare workers, and anyone else on the front lines. Zoom Back Camera is a tiny thing to offer, but we do hope these conversations about movies we love will help buoy your day and continue the education, fellowship, and dialogue with which we like to bracket our films in the Browning cinema. And as we like to do in the Browning, feel free to say hello, say hi in the chat. We are on a brief delay, but you can also pepper in your questions or comments along the way, and we will do our best to respond to them. And we have with us today A1, Mr. Paul Rust. Hello, Paul.
Hey, Rick.
Hi.
Ricky.
Hey. Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Yes, my name is Paul Rust. I hail from a town of Lamars, Iowa, and I am a writer and actor in the entertainment industry.
Great. Can we play the name game if you're from Lamars?
Yes.
Where'd you go to school?
Oh, I went to this small school. I don't know if you would have even heard of it. It's I'll try it. Galen Catholic.
Get out. What year?
Oh my God, did you go too?
I have some. Did you know like Maddie Mazoon?
Yeah, I knew Maddie.
Oh, there you go. Oh, great.
I knew Maddie so much, I stomped my keyboard and the camera flipped off to the side. Yeah, of course I know Maddie. You know Maddie?
Yeah.
I was a class of 2000.
I was the class of 2000.
Are you? Wait. Even though I knew your name from the very beginning was Rick Herbst. Are you Rick Herbst?
Mm-hmm. That's me. Yeah. So Paul,
we both graduated from the same class.
Mm-hmm.
Galen Catholic class of 2000.
40 strong. Well, good to see you, Paul. Nice to meet you. Thank you for choosing Waiting for Guffman. This is a film that will be a lot of fun to unpack and discuss. When did you first see Waiting for Guffman?
Yes, I agree with you. This will be a fun one to talk about. But the first time I saw Waiting for Guffman was for my birthday for about 3 or 4 years while my sister Amy was living in Chicago, Illinois. My April birthday springtime present was a trip to Chicago to hang out with my cool older sister who would take me to see bands and go and see cult movies at midnight screenings and independent releases. It was just a great time to be alive. Was what's spring of 97? I don't know. But she took me to a theater, and a small independent theater in Chicago that was playing Waiting for Guffman. And it was like a very sort of small like theater that probably only had 50 seats. And we sat down, and my sister and I together were laughing. We went with her friend, and my sister and I were just laughing so hard. I mean, it's the hardest I've ever laughed at in a movie theater. And it was just like line after line was completely, you know how like they have those like Scud missiles that like the big thing that they said was great about them was like, you know, they could fire into like a specific window of a building. And that's how like Waiting for Guffman was firing for us. Like when the guy said like, no, he doesn't support the community and he shops at Walmart. We were just like, people know about this? How you hate other people in the town who shop at Walmart because they're not supporting the community. I mean, and then the final target it hit was not a lie, not an exaggeration. I would say probably 4 to 6 weeks before that. Maybe I'd gone in April, and I think the play was February. But I myself had been in a community theater production of a musical about my town's history. So if that wasn't just a sign from heaven that this movie was going to be up my alley.
Would you be talking about one set production, Gateway or Lamar's is Born?
Yes, Gateway, or Lamar's is Born.
I didn't know if it was that
Baffling.
or Alone Together, so I had to parse that out.
The baffling titled Gateway or Lamar's is Born.
They buried the lead. So tell us a little bit about like what was this show? What are your memories and takeaway from Gateway?
What did I? Well, this is just dawning on me as I say this, as it's occurring to me. But most of the people who participate in these things were folks who had retired and now had free time and always wanted to give acting a try, or it was teenagers who liked to do theater. And if a play wasn't happening in school at that time, you would go and just do a play at the community theater to keep your
Your chops up.
yeah, nice and sharp. And
But you were double
so
dipping.
now I'm just like realizing as I was. Were we doing Annie during that time?
You were in both Annie and Gateway or Lamar's is Born. So your chops were like Ginzu sharp. But just brief, like if you were like how would you describe it to someone who hadn't seen it? Granted, very briefly, because the person could unpack the stage work, the scenery for hours. Like a Pracies, a Mrs. Tapper Pracies. What would you give it?
Well, I would just say it's a turn of the century story about the people who came to town, settled it, and rife with problematic representations.
And you know, I think there's, not to defend problematic representations, but there are those that are done in the best of intentions, and those are probably the most invidious. But this was a very good-natured show, right?
Yes. It was a very sweet show. Oh, and so this will be the one. There are so many jewels of anecdotes that could be shared about that production. This is the best. It's not even a behind-the-scenes one. It's just about a moment on the play. But it was like our town, Lamar's, is capital L, little e, space, capital M,
Debatable
lowercase. Ooh, controversial. I like that I said little instead of lowercase. So lowercase ARS. So, and the reason it's got its name that way is because it LEMARS are each the first letters of the pioneers' wives' names, the men who founded this town, their wives' names started with those letters. Anyway, so the best thing was this musical number where they're each holding their letter, each wife, and they're trying to coordinate them so it can spell a word that sounds good to sing. It was like, Selmar, no, and then they sang. Then they got rearranged and sang Lamar's, and it was a glorious moment.
It did really open up an alternate history if we grew up in Smurl, though. What could have been?
Maybe Smurl was better. Who knows?
Maybe it was worse. We will. This is, my piano teacher at the time, Betty Lou Larson, who is an amazing lady. I don't know if you knew this. I actually got like behind the scenes, like early, like I got to hear the tracks before they were put down. So I heard
sweet.
that. Yeah, I heard that Smurl well before anyone in the world. And I will own it till the day I die.
Oh, because she wrote it.
Yeah, she did the piano work, and her husband, Art,
Right.
who was a professor at Westmar, did wrote the script. And that was really fascinating because it was an entryway into like educated Protestants. And that was like the only household I went into. And then you walk in and they're like, we're writing a musical. I was like, oh, that's what you do with a doctorate. I was like, okay. So if you could, I mean, obviously this would be a gem to revisit since the VHS copy has been removed from the public library. But if you I know it didn't make the refurbishing. It was lost in the fire. If you could revisit one show from your youth, I mean, from the Postal Playhouse or otherwise, which show would it be?
Ooh, that is a great question, but I'm not surprised because Rick, you're always great at posing these little thinkers for people. They're good. They're good. What would I most want to see? Well, obviously one that me and my friends were in, and the one with most of my friends, so I could see what we all looked like on stage singing and dancing. I'm gonna go with the spectacular, high budget, maybe the biggest budget, Jesus Christ Superstar. Plus, I love it. I love the tunes.
Thank you for plugging our discussion about Jesus Christ Superstar this Thursday, Paul. Nice dovetail.
You're welcome.
The correct answer is Children of Eden, but that's okay. Okay, let's hop into this. Let's hop into this movie. Let's hop into this movie, Waiting for Guffman. So very quickly, we're plopped into, as you were mentioning, Blaine, Missouri. Not far in proximity or in size or scope to Lamar's, Iowa. But we quickly meet the town, the government, its officials, and the fact that they are about to host a giant sesquicentennial. Any memories of town spectaculars that pop out to you briefly, or interactions with local government?
Well, Lamar's, Iowa had its famed ice cream days. And so that was a way to celebrate that we were the self-proclaimed ice cream capital of the world. And so I'm trying to remember. During one of the ice cream days, I worked for a radio station and I had to wear a penguin costume for one of the FM stations that was like Cool 95, and the little spokes. Yes, very cool. They're so cool they can't even spell it with a C.
They got that ESPN2
vibe. But this is gonna sound like a lie because it sounds like a cliche hackneyed thing, but some little kids cornered me and started like punching me, and I didn't know how to defend myself. Do you remember that?
I actually I don't. That one I blocked it out. I'm sorry that we beat you up. I didn't.
And then I took off
I didn't
the
know you were
helmet.
in there.
It wasn't you.
And we took off our little kids' faces.
I was like, oh, it was a prank. Okay, that's cool.
Everyone's down with it.
No, and this is the final kicker, but it wasn't a kick. That's going to be the real kicker here. When I took off the head, this was like 13, 14-year-old boys, and I was like 16, 17. No, they were like 11, 12. I was 16, 17. And when I took off the helmet, one of them slapped me across the face. Is that so weird and funny? And I just kind of sat there and took it. It was weird. Yeah.
They hated Happy Feet. They got a screener in the future from when they were in 10. It blew their mind. And they couldn't have it. Okay, back into a little bit of what's going on in Blaine. We meet Gwen Fabin Blunt. Love anyone with a hyphenated last name, especially keeping that Kennedy prestige front and center. Love local royalty. Have you encountered, and this doesn't have to be Lamar's royalty, but generally any like family dynasties or whatnot? Dynasties.
I did once walk into a party in Los Angeles with my wife, and when I walked in, I immediately sensed the vibe was like weird, and I was like, it was like a birthday brunch or something like that for these people we kind of knew, for the people they kind of knew. It was like so many, like we didn't belong there. And it became very clear we didn't belong there when we got in, because I was like, what is this? And Leslie said to me, she was like, oh, they're like generations like wealthy. It's like, oh. It's just like, it was a bunch of families all together. It's just like, we're dynasties. It was the first time I had just ever been in a dynasties. And so that's it's a kind of a loose interpretation of your question, Rick.
Yeah.
Because they weren't dropping their specific names, but it was definitely like, I was weirded out by, or maybe beguiled by their behavior. Clearly seemed like we are significant people, more significant than the others, which I think is the joke in Waiting for Guffman, is that she thinks to be a Fabin is to be a Kennedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We meet some characters.
How about you?
Well, part of it was going to school on the East Coast and being like, ooh, but then going to England and being like, whoa. But thankfully, my sister married a Sitzman, so I was prepped. So during the so we meet the cast of characters. We hear about a production of Backdraft that went awry. Any attempts at like meta theatricality or stunts or like they say sense memory, but anything that like you're like, oh, this seems like a great idea to light things on fire, that kind of went back on you during your theatrical days?
Well, it's funny. I remember thinking I did take a class, and we were watching a scene or two from Waiting for Guffman as somebody brought it in as like a scene they liked, And I remember the when it cuts to the headline where it was like theater burns, many flee, or something. Like it was like they cut to and it got a huge laugh, and then our film school teacher or whatever was like, oh yeah, when you do like fake documentaries like that, whenever you can ever cut to like a physical thing that was a product of a situation that was a joke, it makes it really, really funny. And well, that stayed with me, Rick.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a good.
Shout out to the University of Iowa
Hey.
cinema department.
Hey. And we meet Ron and Sheila, we meet Libby May, Dr. Alan Pearl. So like in meeting these characters, that was probably the good point as this like a general question for this movie. I've met people not from small town community theater scenes who say this movie punches down. I still think it uppercuts, but like, how do you now, like removed somewhat? How does it read differently, or how do you take it in?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've encountered the same thing too, and yeah, like it's tough because one of the, I think, a kind of a flimsy defense for anything, but for me to go, but I did do community theater, and it wasn't a small town, and it was about their history. Like, I know it. And I think it's pretty fair. I don't think they're being mean at all. It never crosses a line. I don't know. Maybe it sounds defensive or something, but I guess it's more me being like, my experience with it. It doesn't feel like, hey, I was there too. And I feel like the play. The movie Waiting for Guffman is more of a celebration of a community coming together and doing anything that was artistic or a creative endeavor, is funny in its quaintness. It's not necessarily funny in its like, I don't know, like, look at these boobs. And the musical's great. When they do it, it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm a sucker for a let's put on a show plot. And if it was like a Broadway musical and you have like I can never do this, terrible enfant type director, like you like laugh at the dictator. And that's potentially where it might stray out of bounds for some people I know. They've said as much as like Corky's queerness in this space. But I always liked how like Corky's like closetedness is just like accepted and like not mentioned, and they roll with it. And like in that way, it's both like it's viz on a couple of fronts. And I think any community theater viz is pretty good. And this could be much more ruthless than it is.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily.
Oh, that's a great way of looking at it. Is like, oh, what is the version that doesn't? And it's like, oh, then it's like every scene, every joke, every moment is about how do we try to reinforce that these people are not people to be admired
Mm-hmm.
or loved.
Right. And people, I know, yeah. And that's there's a lot of love in it.
Yes.
Including in the auditions. Love the school projector pushed aside. Love a computer monitor that has a case on top of it. Don't know why we stopped doing that. Love a Channel 1 television monitor. I salute you every time Anderson Cooper comes on CNN. But we get like a really great scene with the auditions. You can go with any really good, but I'm probably tilting toward any bad auditions But you remember?
That's good. Oh, you know what? I just wanted to say the final thing. I also don't think it's punching down or being cruel to the characters, because in a way, I think all of those actors shooting a low budget independent movie in Missouri, they feel spiritually closer to the people who are doing community theater in Blaine than the people who are doing Broadway.
Right,
Like,
right.
I think that there's probably some kinship there, if anything. Sorry to go back, but
No. But the form itself, like mockumentary, is
mock,
closest.
yes.
It's closest. It's mocking, but it is closest to a DIY type of show, like the musical itself. So I think that
Yeah.
they're fellow passengers.
Yeah. But yeah, as far as bad auditions go, the worst one I can think of is he didn't ever make it, but Gore Verbinski was going to do some movie adaptation of some video game that takes place underwater. It's like
Candyland? He was attached to Candyland for a while.
I mean, I would have loved to have been in Candyland. No, it was
Mr.
like
Mint. You could have been a Mr. Mint.
Oh, believe me, I was born to play Mr. Mint. But it was about like some spooky underwater hotel, and I came in and I started up the monologue, and I was like an elevator attendant in this spooky hotel or something. And I started up, and halfway in, the casting director stopped me and was like, "Okay, like this movie's not like supposed to be funny." I was like, "Oh," it was like, "It's supposed to be scary." So it's like, "Oh." So then in that moment, unprepared, I have to be scary, which you can imagine a room filled with daylight and two people with a video camera on a tripod. A little hard to be scary, unprepared at least.
Nice. So when's it coming out? When are we gonna see it?
I got the lead.
Oh, great. And generally the auditions are it's good because the auditions they whet your appetite for what is the bulk of this movie, which is the musical. Because you get those auditions, you're like, this is we're on a good path.
Yeah.
And then it just gives you those goods.
Yeah, and they're
yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say they're perfect character introductions too. You get to like see how each of them approach doing their audition in their own individual way, and it reveals a lot about them.
We then get the cast together, and they go off and they lock down Clifford Woolley and Johnny Savage. And it is this good, like, I do particularly like we don't have everyone, now we gotta go and like do our own grocery shopping in the community for cast members. Like, that's really great. And
yeah.
I am kind of popping through some of the rehearsal work because I want to make sure there's time to talk about the movie. So I'll pop ahead to the city council money ask.
Yes.
Still work for you?
Well, sorry, I keep doing this where I go, oh, I forgot to say the answer to the last question.
You're fine.
But I was just gonna say, if we're just talking about like great moments and stuff like that, like Fred Willard in the audition, and Catherine O'Hara together, but when they're done and he says, do you want us to strike this chair? Yeah, we know the terms. Oh, it's like, Whew. There, it might be comedy's peak. It's perfect.
Yeah, and that's another, just, you know, it's the if you are parodying or biting at their like confidence and ego, like that transcends all of these spaces, right?
That's right.
Like,
That's right. Yep.
and it's really funny when people flex, like just
I love that flex.
oh yeah, yeah. Um, uh, also, just
But
Ron,
yes, the city council meeting. Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say Ron and Sheila generally, like as a couple, the we dress alike, we work together, we compete together type is one that we don't see enough of.
Well, yes, you're right. And I like it might be not one of my favorite portrayals of a marriage in movies. It's pretty great. Like the fact that I mean the way Catherine O'Hara just casually drops that Ron gives her extensive notes at home on her acting.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
and I know this is actually a shout out to the South Bend Blaniacs. We meet the character of Gene, the piano player, who
yes.
favorite of many. But yeah, the city council meeting is when we see the first like hubris cracks, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that right, continuing with what you were saying about like if you're sort of seeing people's like ego, which I guess is the central joke. It's the title of the movie that they're waiting for Guffman. That this guy, they think their play has the goods to go to Broadway, and Guffman is coming to see them and will give them that ticket. So I guess the whole joke is based on it's a very true element of everyone, regardless if they did a play about their town's history. But so yeah, to see somebody, it's a I wouldn't say it's like cringy, but it is a hard, it's a complicated comedy moment where I'm feeling for Corky, but oh my god, when that guy says, "What is wrong with you?" It's like the meanest thing you can say, and it always makes me laugh.
And especially because Corky is someone who both has come off as this like, oh, I'm so shielded, I'm weathered and toughened from the New York scene.
Yeah.
And it's clearly not.
Yeah.
So when he gets the barbs thrown his way, and then it becomes very defensive. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good skewer.
Well, and then the guy, the piano player, when Corky gets defensive with him, that's one of my favorite scenes. Is the "You're too loud."
Oh, Lloyd, Bob
Yeah,
Balaban, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, which is, and that's the like passive aggressive, territorial community theater member who wants their space, and once you invade it, is not going to go. Will lie down, but it's going to be a pain about it. It's a good type.
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. I'm thinking of like the music stand and whatever that was, Once Upon a Mattress.
Oh, Controversial.
Controversial, but those moments. So we're just we are limited on time, so I do want to skip to
Yes.
some goods. Day of the show, get to see the town full plumage, kids performing, not Karen. It's great.
I'll see those kids not care in the audience.
This real loose choreography. Oh, I'm saying performing on the outside before we even get in. But yeah, it was great seeing like 14-year-olds at that show being like,
yeah,
both, do we have to be here, but also like rap.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, and they're also not disrespectful. Like they're just sitting there quietly, maybe bored. But I do love when the UFO lands, the shot of the little girl's eyes filled with wonder.
Oh God, it's so good. And
the very beginning of the play is so good. I rarely, this, Rick, I rarely quote movies. It's not a thing I like to do.
We didn't gain that skill. We weren't taught.
That's right. But I do find myself often saying, beans, beans, big fat juicy beans. Oh, don't get me started talking on beans.
And the fact that the crowd responds so well,
yes,
and that they got them in the palm of their hand.
That's actually a beautiful detail they include about community theater, which is any joke, anything said that could resemble a humorous remark gets a huge laugh because people are there to support Grandpa up there.
Yeah. Which is why the moment when Dr. Pearl's wife like goes to clap and no one's clapping and holds herself, like it's
the best.
Oh yeah, she was doing her best, but it doesn't come through. So we'll run through the numbers. First of all, the music in this is amazing. Like, love.
Yes.
I'm surprised there hasn't been like a stage production.
It is Rick. Oh, sorry.
You're okay.
You who share many of the same thoughts and viewpoints and opinions as my wife. She's long said she thinks there should be a Waiting for Guffman musical.
Yeah, no doy.
Where you go and you see the musical. So yeah, that's what you just said. So you two have to get Christopher Guest's permission to do this.
Or why there just hasn't been and there probably is, and someone please tell me in the comments if I'm missing this. Just like a knockoff, right? Like like a Waiting for
or somebody just did the play. Yeah, some kooky college kids put on the performance.
Yeah, that's why. And in Googling it, we were shocked that people weren't shadow casting it either, because again, I think there might have happened there, but so like set for it.
Yeah.
Okay, but quickly, Covered Wagons. Thoughts?
Covered Wagons. Well, I like Covered Wagons maybe mostly when Corky says he's back and he wants to get back to rehearsal. So let's start with Covered Wagons. And then Dr. Pearl goes, Covered Wagons. Like he's just so happy that they're back. But I don't know, favorite parts. That the thing that we knew when I saw it and you saw it, we talked about that everybody who can do a specific type of dance move gets to do it in a community theater presentation.
Yeah, you have the Soul Train. Like, yes, it's Stone Soup. Like, what can you bring to this show? And,
she's good at getting lifted up and sort of stretching, and one is can do flips, and somebody does a moonwalk.
Yeah. What you got? What's in the pantry? I also like the very official like Foursquare bowing. And it's the like when you would get like an hour lecture on like, this is actually how you would shake hands in the 1500s. And how quickly that devolves to just like
Yeah.
Hopping into Stool Boom, again, keeping with like the real like tight tuck that Corky has as a dramaturge, but then they're wearing like tennis shoes during the McKinley era. But thoughts on Steel Boom?
Yeah, Stool Boom is great because I think every town has one of these things, which is like you stake your claim for fame on it. And it's a way to, did I say state? Every town and every state. Yeah. And, you know, if I took a broad picture out, it's also like, if you were going to represent this time period, if I was writing the Blaine musical, I would be like, oh, we need to show about how the Industrial Revolution came and touched our town and we had a boom. And it's also just a good story of America, Rick.
Right.
The story of Blaine is the story of America, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
But the harmonies are great. I love the thing that they nail so much is when somebody's confident in a harmony, they'll sing a little louder. When they're less confident, they get quiet. I mean, Catherine O'Hara is the one that I think is like the killer in all of this. Like, well, I thought I'm gonna like that. Delivery needed to be documented on film, so everybody knew like this is how weird plays how people talk. And often with the southern accent.
Yeah, lilts of the Depression era in them. This is the song I had the mini soundtrack downloaded and definitely played the most of all of them. Like it would go on mixed CDs of the early 2000s. It would come on and it'd be real divisive in the room. We get a good intermission where we get some banana bread.
Maybe my favorite, no, not maybe. My favorite part of the movie is that Michael Hitchcock monologue about how he wishes he was in the play.
Yeah, it is a fire that smolders, and we get to see it explode just once, and then put back when he like ogles Corky at the end of the show, and it is a.
I never really thought about it. That's what makes that moment. So maybe in isolation, it's not as funny. You kind of need the whole performance. The fact that like you're going like, well, does he like? He seems to be into plays, and it seems to be like, well, why wouldn't he do this? And so finally, when he says the thing that's been in our hearts all along, why isn't he in the play? Oh, he wishes he was.
Well, and that Corky wouldn't let him be in it because he wouldn't reschedule an audition. Yet he's going out and like recruiting people to be in the show. It's
like he could have been the guy. He could have been the guy who introduced the play.
Yeah, like cruel taskmasters are funny. Uneven cruel taskmasters are the best.
Yes.
We then get the very serious song, Penny for Your Thoughts, which is always the song that the person who writes a show thinks is the most important, but no one else wants to hear. And we end on the comical, rousing. Well, we don't end on it. Then we get a Nothing Ever Happens on Mars.
Is that what they end with? No, and then
no,
yeah, then
they get they're gonna end with a people pleaser, but it's the penultimate.
Yeah. It's the chandelier crashing and Phantom of the Opera, is the UFO appearing.
Well, that is something that I actually, in watching the movie, I was like, God damn it, this show is too good. Like, I slash impressed. I'm like, oh, that's like those gears in the background are like smart, and they have an orchestra, tuxedos, like.
They in the commentary for the movie, they talk about how they had to make a choice that like this is actually better than most community theaters would do. And the fact that you don't really know who like wrote the songs necessarily, like, because that's a talented person as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just better to get the pleasure of it. And I mean, it's conceivable that, you know, perhaps like maybe a Spencer, a Storm Lake had this in their bag of tricks. Like,
that's true. I mean, there's community theaters in St. Louis, in Minneapolis. I'm sure like they would be able to pull something like this off.
Yeah. And it's just like, yeah, it doesn't have. Actually, that's one way it's great is they make it pleasurable and they give them a show that's successful and worthwhile.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't want it any different way. If it was crummy, it would be a bad ending of the movie.
Mm-hmm. So to the end of the movie, first of all, acknowledge the like pure red meat thrown at the crowd with the USA ending. But then we get the letdown of Guffman, and does it feel different now as opposed to when you saw it in the past? Anything from that moment that hits?
It does work for me, and what I was just saying a moment ago, which was like, oh, the central joke that runs through the movie a lot is their hubris is greater, than is, well, I guess hubris is automatically undeserved or something, but that they so it shouldn't then be as much of a emotional gut punch as it is when he shows up, but it does for me. Like, I wouldn't say I like cry, but it is the most like melancholy, true poignant moment, or only poignant movie, and a moment of the movie that like doesn't get sentimental, because it's kind of a sad moment, but now that I will say, when I was sitting in the audience, it wasn't like, I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, well, I know that's not Guffman. That's not him showing up late. Like, that didn't really, I don't think it's supposed to trick anybody. You're supposed to know, instead just kind of be like, it's probably not that guy. And now we have to kind of wait to see their hopes get dashed. Anyway, end of whatever that was.
Yeah.
How about you? Does that scene work differently for you now?
Yeah, it doesn't work differently. It works the same. It's still devastating.
Yeah.
But it's devastating in it's good. They don't play it for laughs. They let you be there with it. And I think the fact that the movie needed it too. Like, it in part because it shows like, the ephemerality of the moment was the important thing. It wasn't like a means to an end. It is about the moment of the show and the connection that they have, and it's just a good reminder to like sit with things that are pleasurable and enjoy them, and not be like, oh, someone didn't like it or things got in the way. I think especially now, it's good to be in the present tense and love things and enjoy them for what they are.
Yes.
Okay. We got a 5-minute countdown. Okay.
All right.
So we get the codas. Let's just go with what souvenir in Corky's shop would you want most?
Ooh, I think I'd want the Anthony Michael Halls. What about you?
Andrew McCarthy. Close. Okay. So Paul, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. First of all, thank you so much for talking about Waiting for Guffman.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to unpack. particularly the first and last scenes. So Paul, did you know Proust had a younger sister named Becky?
I did hear that. I knew that, yes.
Yeah, you're aware. I mean,
Yeah.
She developed a 5-question questionnaire to determine whether or not you love movies. It is scientifically valid. Do you care to take it?
Yes.
I need my social science glasses. What was the first R movie? What was the first R-rated movie you watched? R movie. What R movie did you see? I once had a patron tell me that
the thing was, it did. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I once had a patron tell me that All That Jazz was very R-rated, which is my other like fun way to put that.
It's so funny when you said our movie, it didn't hit my ears wrong. So I was like, oh, our movie. It was I think Friday 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan.
Was that in Jay Cochran's basement?
No, that was in the Mizoon's living room. The first R-rated movie, first R movie from beginning to end.
Okay. What movie would you be compelled to buy, even though you already may own a copy of it, if you found it in Picker's Paradise for $2?
Oh, Sleepaway Camp, man.
Good one. Have you?
What? I was expecting to figure.
I was trying to move it along. I could talk about that for a little bit. I would pay $2 for a copy of Camp Sleepaway as well. The best movie to watch on a second date.
Oh, I thought it should be something funny.
For example,
Ernest Goes to Jail.
Great. It's a good litmus test. What's your favorite pizza? Sub-question A.
Pepperoni.
And what is the best movie to eat on the couch with a pepperoni pizza?
Pepperoni the movie.
Got it. And lastly, you are 10 years old. Happy early birthday, by the way. I'm just
yeah, thank you.
Easter birthday. You are 10 years old and receive a screener from the future. What film most blows your mind?
Oh, first of all, I just want to say this is all the questions are great, but this is an amazing question because it really gets you thinking.
I love those questions. Thank you. Becky was brilliant.
And I think, I couldn't go with something like that was too adult from the future, because I think it would be too overwhelming at 10 to be trying to make sense of, I don't know. I wouldn't want to see Michael Clayton. So I thought, what would be
Big Chemical is evil?
I was trying to think it would be something that as a 10-year-old, if I saw it, it would probably, I was thinking probably like Lego movie, something that's like incredibly accelerated, referential entertainment geared towards a child. I think I would have seen that and been like, whoa, because Roger Rabbit was fairly mind-blowing, and like how they could get all these different properties together in one universe. But to do that with like even more recent history with toys I played with when I was 10 or younger, I think that would have blown my mind.
With references that you would both know and not know. So you'd be oscillating.
Yeah.
Like you would get some of Batman, but not that Batman. Like it would open up worlds that you knew
kind of like
about.
Yeah, kind of like reading like a Mad magazine was when you were a kid. You got like half the references because they were recent, half of them you're like, what's a ab scam?
Ab scam is a question that we missed on the 2000 KTAV quiz bowl. That's what ab scam is. Iran Contra affair, it is not.
So
Hey,
funny,
Paul,
they,
go ahead.
they didn't want us to know. They didn't want us to know.
No, that Lego movie, or no, the Mad Magazine really failed us. One second,
Yeah.
Paul, I'll do the calculations. Hey, it turns out you love movies, which is a good thing. And we loved having you on this show. We know you have to run. So we're going to say goodnight. And thank you, everyone out there, for listening.
Thank you, Rick.
Hey, have a good night. And
Good
we hope to
night.
see you on Zoom back camera soon. Good night, everybody.
Fun.